The London Bridge Sports Medicine Podcast.
Medical news, health, fitness.
With Dr. AJ Seth.
Hi there. Welcome to LBSM's Extraordinary Patient Stories. Our amazing patients have shared their journeys with us through injury and illness so we can learn and live better. Today we're going to be talking to Annie, who is a lovely lady in her late 20s, who came to the clinic with some hip and groin pain, which is an extremely common complaint and something we see a lot of. She really came in looking to be more fit and active and asking how she could strengthen her body and improve her health. She was involved in a horrific car accident in her teens with the loss of her father, which ultimately changed the course of her life. So I wanted to know from her, what was it like dealing with such trauma at such a young age, from a physical, mental and social point of view? But also, what factors made the biggest difference in her recovery? She is an amazingly positive person and has a fantastic outlook on life, largely because she's got the correct support network around her, everyone from her medical team, friends and family. If you're going through an injury or illness, no matter how big or small, having the correct team around you is vital, not only to overcome the initial injury, but going on to lead a happy and healthy life. Hope you enjoy listening. So, hi Annie, welcome to Extraordinary Patient Stories. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Very good, yeah.
So just a bit of context. You obviously came to see me, I think it was a couple of months ago now, and we were having some issues with your hip. And before we delve into the hip, the story around your hip, just tell us a bit about yourself and what you do, for example.
Okay, so I'm a health advisor. So spend a lot of my time talking to lots of different people about diet and exercise and sleep, female health, all sort of manner of different health related things. My background's actually in nutrition. I've done a master's in public health nutrition and a degree in sort of sports nutrition as well. So basically, I just love food. That's probably the best thing to know about me. I enjoy cooking a lot.
Fine. So any excuse to be near food, essentially.
Pretty much, yeah, pretty much.
And you obviously work in the healthcare sector, so a lot of concepts about sort of healthy living, healthy lifestyle are not foreign to you at all, are they?
No. I can't always say that it's easy to follow everything that's healthy living, but all the sort of, I guess, to try and follow it as much as I can. And I enjoy talking about health and speaking to people about health. It's good.
If you take us right from the beginning in, if you don't mind, give us a sort of account about that sort of the hip injury you had.
Yeah, so when I was 16, I went on a lovely skiing holiday, and on the way back was in a car crash. It was a very traumatic car crash. 3 people died in the crash, and 2 people survived, me being one of them. So it was a very difficult time, and I guess, yeah, I had quite a lot of injuries. I ended up being in hospital for around about a month. I fractured my hip, fractured my neck, so C7 vertebrae. Did something weird to my shoulder, don't know what, some sort of impingement type thing. Bit of a broken nose, so lots of various things going on, and ended up being in hospital for quite a while. It's hard to put into specific words how it felt, I guess, but as sort of what happened, that's it.
So I mean, Annie, that is, anyone listening to this will feel that's quite a striking and horrific accident to be in, particularly when people have been injured or killed in the accident itself.
Yeah.
The hospital you went to was in France, was it? Or
No. So we travelled back and got to London, and at the time I was still living in Yorkshire. I'm from Huddersfield. So we were travelling back, and we ended up. The crash was near London. So I was in hospital in London, 2 different hospitals. I think I went to one for the first couple of days maybe, and then they transferred me to St George's in Tooting, because I think they had like a good hip specialist there, and that was the, you know, the worry, something that needed to be sorted.
Obviously, a lot of it will maybe a blur, but in terms of the specifics about what was told to you or the emotions at the time, how much of that do you remember?
Honestly, not that much. It's hard really to separate what I was told happened to me, or what I remember being told happened to me. So, for example, like someone might say, "Oh, you know, the doctors might have come and told me everything that was going on and all the, you know, the procedures and everything," but I don't remember it. But I remember my mum telling me what happened, and then those memories sort of stick in your brain. So I end up remembering little bits of things,
Yeah.
but not massive amounts. I can remember at one point not wanting to eat anything because I didn't like hospital food, which is really weird because I really like hospital food usually. um, but I remember, you know, various random little bits. It's very
Yeah.
odd, a very odd sort of time.
And so you're obviously at the time you're going through a hugely traumatic experience, and you're getting fed little bits of information from different people all around. How important was sort of family support? You mentioned your mum obviously being there at that sort of time.
Yeah, I mean, super important, really important. In the crash, my dad actually died, so he was in the same crash as me. So it was a bit of a, I mean, obviously my mum was there for me, but she was going through trauma as well, losing my dad. So family was really, really important. My mum, you know, her sister, brother, um, everyone was sort of there as much as they could be, and you can't really say anything more than that, especially being that we were in London, and
Yeah.
it's really, you know, it's quite a long way to travel if people have other sort of prior commitments, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, really, really important. It felt a lot of support actually.
Did you have time to take in the sort of grievances around you whilst you're in so much pain? I mean, I'm just trying to get an idea of whether the concern was around, you know, obviously the loss of your father and the devastation from the accident, or around your body and your injuries, because obviously you've broken your spine and major trauma to the body. So how did that sort of balance out?
Guess I remember, you know, the grieving process and the trauma of the accident, but it was really important to like my mum and people that were there to that I was being looked after and that my body was being given the best chance to heal, and you know, those
Mm,
sorts of things.
mm,
It was definitely important. I think, you know, that's why I was moved hospital, so that I could get the best care for my hip.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and I do remember people saying quite a lot, actually, you know, because I was lying down essentially for sort of 3 weeks. There was a lot of concern about my neck being fractured,
mm,
um, and what they were going to do with it. At one point, they thought I might have to have like a halo
yeah,
track thing put on.
mm,
But because I was lying down, because I was resting my hip and stuff, it meant that I was able to just wear, you know, like a foam sort of neck brace
a
thing,
collar,
a
yeah.
collar, yeah. So there was definitely a lot of fighting and trying to get me better so that I could get back home and try and get back to some sense of normality, really,
Mm, mm.
because it's so different being down south when you're not used to it and when you're stuck in a hospital.
Tell me about the healthcare professionals that were looking after you. Um,
Oh,
so you obviously go to a trauma centre, which is so St George's Hospital in
mhm.
London is
Yeah.
classified as a major trauma centre. How were they in terms of the care they gave to you, and more importantly, what support did you receive from a grievance point of view and all that sort of aspect to it?
Well, I mean, they were amazing. They were actually amazing. They were, you know, I mean, from one respect, I remember my mum saying that they were really good and kind to her, who was obviously dealing with a lot. But from a sort of medical perspective, they were great. And from the bits that I remember and the bits that my mum has told me, they were really helpful, really lovely. I remember in particular there was one sort of matron that really helped me out on a couple of occasions.
Yeah.
I met the nurses were great. I mean, the hip surgeon was incredible.
Mm.
The care was really, really good, and I don't remember anything that wasn't.
Tell us about the hip surgery and exactly what happened to your hip joint.
So I fractured my left acetabulum, and I think so. I guess the first bit to say is that when I was in hospital for the first 3 days at the first hospital, they put my leg in traction to start with, because they needed to make sure that it didn't heal in a odd way, I guess.
Mm.
And then at St George's, the doctor, surgeon, I think what he did is he put a couple of screws in. This is my, and then some sort of plates as well to just try and keep everything in place,
Mm.
which was great. Someone joked with me at the end. They were like, "Oh, you've got two legs the right length. That's perfect. They match," which I took as a good sign.
Well, it's not a bad sign, is it? Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Okay, so fairly extensive, obviously, operations to fix. So the acetabula is the socket off the hip joint,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean at that time, did you have an idea of was it explained to you exactly what was going on in your hip, or were you like, oh, you know what, just get on with it, just fix whatever you need to fix?
It was explained to me, but it was more important for the surgery to be done, as
Yeah,
in, like, to me, I was like, well, let's just get me better then. Like,
fine.
this
Yeah.
has to be done. It's not something that you really have a choice about. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
It's not a
Mm.
surgery where you think, oh, I could do that now, or I could do that in a year or so. It's a
Mm.
surgery that's like, you have to have that done now. This is
Yeah.
important. So, yeah, so it's sort of just like, right, all steam ahead, let's go for it.
Well, in some ways that's easier, right? You're taking the advice of what is best for you, and you don't have
I
the
mean,
decisions to make. You just go with the flow.
yeah, I'm not a doctor. I don't know. If someone asked me what to do with a fractured left acetabulum, I'd
Mm.
know now, but I wouldn't I wouldn't have known at the time.
And how many surgeries in total did you end up having?
Two, I think it. Oh, I guess they must have put the traction in the surgery,
Yeah.
so probably that one to start with, and then the hip surgery, and then I actually had I didn't have any other surgery at that point, but then a few years later, I had another surgery. I think it was a few years later. I'm not entirely sure, but I was getting a little bit of pain,
Mm.
and so what they did is they took one of the screws out, because they thought that it was the potential that it was the screw was like slightly by maybe a millimeter touching the psoas nerve,
The,
psoas tendon,
yeah,
psoas.
the hip flexor tendon that sits on top of the hip joint, which is very common actually from screws in that sort of area.
Yeah, I was told that. So they did a surgery to take that screw out basically, and it
Okay.
was absolutely fine after that. So 3 surgeries overall.
Mm.
Yeah.
So you've left hospital. There's been that initial trauma. You've gone back to Yorkshire. Is there a point where the whole thing just sinks in of the trauma you've been through, the loss of your father? Can you remember a time where that whole thing just came together and you thought, and how that affected you really?
It was a slow process, in all honesty. I so was in hospital for around about a month-ish, and then when I came back was 2 months of crutches and mainly being in bed because not putting weight on the hip, and still having a neck brace and various other
Mm.
cuts and scratches and whatever. And I also taking a lot of pain medication,
Mm.
like
Mm.
um, for quite a while. So probably, I think because the injuries was combined with the grief, with the change in life. I had to start college a year later than all my friends and go back and resit stuff and change your life. It was quite it'd be a process where everything hits for a day and then you sort of blank it out a little bit again and feel all right and a bit chirpy, and then next week it might be a week of being like, oh god, this is actually happening to me, and this is now my life, and this is something I have to get used to, and then blank it out again for a little bit of time. So it was sort of that like steady process of trying to come to terms with everything, the changes in my body because of what I could and couldn't do for a while. And I think, in all honesty, it probably took years and years and years. I mean, it's 14 years ago now. It probably took 10 years for me to think about it and be able to talk about it without getting really, really emotional. Like now it's more of a factual thing, and I can be happy and feel grateful for a lot of things. But for many years I was angry and sad and didn't really know when the emotion would come out about it all.
The ordeal wasn't over, right? Because you had
Yeah.
months of being bedbound, medication for a long time, painkillers. I'm just, when you mention life's changes to your life, I'm just trying to get a picture of what it's like when you're 16 years old to be completely removed from your lifestyle, your friend groups, socializing, getting ready to go to college, university, all of that just being taken away. What it's like to deal with that. I mean, did you feel angry and aggrieved that it was completely taken out of your hands? What were your thoughts at that sort of time?
Yeah. Yes to angry, but also a bit numb as well. I would say that, I mean, I always have been quite a happy-go-lucky, sociable person that wants to have a chat with friends and loves people. So when I was in the crash, when I had my surgery, it was such a weird thing being 16 and starting college and then getting most of the way through it, and then in the February having the accident, and then having to stop college there and then take the next year, I guess from so the crash was in February, so from February up to September when the next sort of college year starts, getting myself back to being as ready as I can be, and then restarting college again. It was a massive thing because I went back to start in the first year of college, but my friends were then in the second year of college. So it was a really, really odd situation where I guess it feels like you're being held back a bit. So you're being held back a year kind of thing through no fault of your own. It's just happened, and it's definitely something to get used to.
Did you maintain the same friend groups though, or did that change?
So I've got a really, really great group of mates from home. And a lot of us have been friends since we were in infant school together. And they're still my friends now. Yeah, yeah. So they actually really, really helped me. Even though I'd gone back a year in college and they were forward, everyone still stuck around. And I did make new friends as well in my year, my year below, which I started. But I definitely felt some sort of jealousy, a bit of anger, a bit of sadness when I was then the next year in the last year of college, and everyone else had sort of gone and they'd gone to uni and they were starting the next chapter. So it was, I mean, it was weird. I was lucky to have good friends that sort of kept me up with everything they were doing though.
We see lots of patients who have had significant injuries as a young adult, but that doesn't mean they are limited for what they're able to do or achieve. Having an understanding around the injury is key, as well as addressing the psychological toll it can have. Please do come talk to us if you feel you need any support. What emotional support, apart from having great friends, do you did you receive? And looking back now, would you think it would have helped to have received at that time? I mean, did someone really sort of sit you down and work through these emotions with you, or was it something you sort of had to figure out for yourself, would you say?
Um, a little bit of both, I would say. Um, I'm the sort of person that is totally happy to accept help from anybody. So if I, you know, as I sort of said, like I don't know everything, and even at the time at 16, I was like I don't know how to fix this. I
Mm,
can't do this on my own. So my mum helped me sort out. I had lots of different types of counselling, to be honest, which really helped. I'm trying to think what types I had. One was sort of CBT. One was I think there was one where you actually wore headphones and then a beep went from one side of your head to the other. It was like a sound thing and it was helping to process stuck
mm, mm,
memories. So having sort of professional support when it came to sort of processing everything was really great for me. I
mm,
sort of tried a different therapy and a little bit, and then that didn't really work, so I tried something else, and then that helped me more, so stuck with that.
mm,
So I think definitely that sort of support was really beneficial.
mm,
But then there comes a point where I guess to take the tools that people had shown me,
mm,
um, to then go off and figure other things out on my own. It's a
mm.
bit of a combination of both.
Did you think you managed to do that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, as I said, I'm very lucky in that friends and family are around me.
Mm,
So I was really lucky with that. And then adding in with sort of the professional help and
mm,
therapy, and then feeling strong enough and supported enough that I could go and think about things on my own
mm.
um, and have chance to do that as well.
And you mentioned you had a few different types of therapy. Is that because certain ones weren't working as well for you, or because you wanted to try a few?
I was just trying to find something that worked, basically, something that
Mm,
I felt was helpful. Which, to be honest, like must be really weird for people that like the therapist to listen to a 16-year-old. Because I mean, I don't think I really knew what I wanted at the time, but
mm.
it was just about finding something that I felt worked for me.
It's so good to hear that you were so open-minded, because accepting help is actually not a very easy thing to do, particularly if you're 16 and you feel aggrieved and you've been through major trauma. It's almost quite easy to go the other way and shut down and shut yourself off. But the fact that you were so open to even trying different forms of therapy, I think is a big part of the reason you've done so well, and we're talking today, and you're a very fulfilled, happy person.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, if you spoke to my mum, she would definitely tell you that there were days where I was just in my room and I shut down and I didn't want to speak to her and I didn't want to speak to anybody. And, she had to fight to get me up to go to college.
Mm. Oh,
She
you
often,
were talking about a normal 16-year-old, let alone
am
someone who's been
I?
through trauma.
I don't know normal 16, so, but no, I like, there was definitely times where I would just, don't, don't talk to me. I can't,
Mm.
I, where I was in a bit of a hole, I guess is the way to
Yeah.
describe it. But yeah, but getting help, I honestly think that if I was to tell anybody anything is to do with accidents or grief or even college or just day-to-day general life, I would always say, like, it's totally okay to ask for help, because if I hadn't, I definitely would be a different person today.
Mm.
Or if I hadn't been, given that support to know that there were options of help, then I wouldn't be who I am, I don't think.
You got given further support from a medical counselling point of view. Do you think that shaped your job choices in terms of what you decided to do, or the career path you ended up going down by any way?
I think so, yeah. So really, really randomly, a lot of people say, "Oh, I don't like hospitals. You know, it's a bit scary. Lots of bad things happen there." I actually love hospitals now. I feel like hospitals are this safe place to be, and there's something, you know, I don't know. I feel like they're
Mm,
a safe place to be, and I think definitely seeing the amount of people that, you know, cared for me throughout that time has definitely led me towards some sort of health care
mm,
helping profession. And I think I will always sort of stay in that, or I'd like to. I sometimes think to myself, oh, well, maybe I'd be good like in an office and
mm, mm.
doing something a bit more corporate. And then I think, oh no, I want to I want to help people and do that. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think it definitely has shaped what I want to do.
And it's also amazing that you've taken that whole experience and you've almost taken the bull by the horns, you know, and you've really gone the other way. I mean, it could be quite easy for people to slip into aversions against hospitals or healthcare in general. It's like a true testament to a positive mindset and actually what you can achieve with your mind and with your emotions just by, you know, what not just by having, but having at the center core a positive mindset and a positive outlook.
Yeah, and it is really hard to do. You
Mm.
know, people can't be positive all the time, can they? And I guess it's weird to say that coming out of this horrific thing that's happened, that I am a positive person coming out of it. And
So you knew that there had been some major trauma to the hip requiring multiple surgeries. How much did the hip joint, because that's obviously what you came to see me about
yeah,
many years later, but how much did the hip joint cause you problems throughout your 20s and how much was it on your mind?
probably the sentence to say would be, I would always know that it was there. So I think when your body functions properly, you you probably don't acknowledge that. Oh, my joints are moving well, and this is all fine. And whereas with my hip, I always know that it's there. It's always a bit of an irritant. Walking long distances is tricky. You know, running, I don't run. The thought of like putting pressure on it like this is
Mm,
would flare it up. I guess, well, I mean, winter when it's cold. Uh,
mm, mm.
Throughout my 20s, I always knew that it was cold and that it was winter because my hip felt different. I don't know if that's like a psychological thing or whether that is a real thing, like the metal gets cold.
Not good. Yeah, it's a real
I
thing.
don't
It's not the metals. The joints get stiff.
know. Oh, is it?
Yeah,
So I don't know the science.
particularly if they had some trauma behind it.
Oh, okay.
But again, what you're describing sounds horrific. You've mentioned three or four things that you've had to change your life pretty significantly, but you are saying it in a very upbeat way, which is
Yeah.
great. But
I guess, I mean, there's definitely been days where, um, in the past where I've been lying in bed and my hip it hurts so much that I cry. Um, there's been times,
what sort of age did that sort of happen? Was that always happened?
yeah, mid 20s, like early 20s, I
Okay,
guess.
okay.
Um, not all the time, but occasionally, definite points where it's been super painful. And getting out of bed and stretch is hard to do when it feels so cold that you've got to get a hot water bottle on your hip to
Mm, mm,
um, try and make it move a bit better, be less stiff, really.
mm.
uh,
And did you just accept that these are your symptoms and this is your hip?
Yeah. Yeah. I guess it was absolutely fine for so long. I mean, I always knew that it was there. As I said, it would always ache more than my friends' hips would do, and
Mm,
going upstairs if they were steep would be a bit of a creaky thing. And I just accepted that I'm pretty lucky to be walking. I'm pretty lucky to be alive.
Mm.
I've got I've got hips that are getting me around. So I just sort of accept that, aches and pains and things like that are just something to deal with. But I guess over the past year or so, then now it's got to the point where I want to do something about it. It's got worse over the past year, so. Yeah.
And that's obviously what prompted you to come to the clinic and see me. Tell me, as you reach the end of your 20s and obviously the beginning of your 30s, what is your mindset around your hip and or lifestyle in general? What things would you like to do differently?
Well, I mean, 30s. So as far as I'm concerned, I get better as I get older. I feel like when we get older, we feel more confident. We feel more accepted, more able to ask questions. To do the things that we want to do in our lives. And 30 sort of for me represents this age where I'd quite like to have a few of my things in order. So I'm quite lucky. Me and my partner have just bought a flat, so that's one thing, and I'm like, yay. But when it comes to my body, I don't want to be thinking, with my hip in particular, I don't want to be thinking there's something that I could have done to make it stronger, to make it better, as I go forward in my life. I don't know whether this is true or not. Maybe you can tell me. But this 30 age sort of, I feel like in a way we're still sort of growing and or I guess growing up until 30, and I feel from 30 onwards maybe we start to decline a little bit if you're not looking after your body. I don't know if that's
just hold on there. I wouldn't quite say decline.
I don't mean decline, but I mean like
no, I know what you mean.
In like not medical way, but just in age generally. Like if I'm not looking after myself at 30,
yeah.
And there's stuff I can definitely do, then I'd quite like to start my 30s off with the best chance to keep my hip functioning.
That's a very good way of putting it. That's
yeah,
a very good way of putting it. You dug
not
yourself out of the hole.
Scrap that.
You got yourself out of the hole you dug there. And actually, I mean, you're spot on, right? Entering a new decade is often an opportunity to sort of revisit lifestyle. And it's not just, believe it or not, 29, it's 39, 49, actually, if we do a study of when the patients present with particular problems or particular sort of interventions they want to make deal, the end of a decade and the beginning of a new one is always the peak sort of time. And I think it's a completely reasonable and rational response to have to moving into a new decade of life.
Yeah.
And I think you are right. I think there is a lot to be said about maintenance of a joint or of a previous injury through looking after your body by all the things we've discussed, so the healthy eating, the exercise, the strength training, and making sure you are doing the best for that particular joint, not just from a symptom, not just from a longevity point of view, but from a symptom point of view, and just trying to relieve the symptoms and make your life at the moment much better and more tolerable, for example.
Yeah, definitely. Because I sort of think, for me, in my 20s, I've been like, well, it's cool. Like 20s, my hip hurts a bit, and like that's fine. I can deal with that. It's okay. And then it's reaching that end of the decade. So 29, I'm like, oh, 30. I should probably just try and sort something out. Let's keep the symptoms at bay. Let's do everything we can to make it as good as it can be, really.
And actually, just for the listener's point of view, we did do a repeat scan of the hip, and the hip joint itself is pretty good, right? It's a good form. It's got good surfaces, good covering. So we're actually very, very happy with how the joint looks. But it does also show the testament of trauma doesn't just affect bones, it affects the way the muscles support the joint, around the way your muscles react, about the strength of the muscles. So actually, a strength and conditioning program that's adapted to your injury is actually really, really important all throughout, our life after injury and life beyond.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I did have physio and all sorts of different things after, when I was rehabbing my hip and, everything after the crash, which was really beneficial at the time. And to be honest, I would probably say that I regret not sort of keeping up with doing strength training and from that point onwards, because now I'm having physio and he's great, and he's basically saying that the muscles are I hope I get this right, but the muscles are weaker in one area because I've been walking in a certain way, or not got the
You've
the
adapted.
strength.
Your body's adapted.
Yeah. So it's all about just strengthening the other muscles to make them work better, so that everything isn't quite as painful or tight or whatever it is.
What stopped you continuing? Was it just habit? Was it just what
I think it was just like life. I think when I was, I guess, probably will have been 17, 18 when, doing physio and things like that. But then, you get to 18, you start to drink. Or I did. I won't tar everyone with the same brush as me.
I'll resist the northern jokes just for the time being.
But yeah, I mean, you can probably tell, like, my friends and my family are my life. So you get to 18, you start going out with your friends, and then
it's just not important at that time of life.
It's just not important, yeah. And then
honest.
you go to uni at some point, and then you're out with different friends, and you're trying to learn things and broaden your mind. But physio, and you sort of just think, well, I thought, well, I'm young, it's fine, doesn't matter that I've had a traumatic hip injury, it'll be fine. But yeah.
So for anyone who is going through something similar, whether they're adolescent or young adult and they've received major trauma, what would be your sort of major learnings? I think you've already mentioned a few fantastic key points, but what would you say would be your main reflections on what you've been through?
Oh, I guess main reflections, I think I mentioned it, is, I mean, take support where you can get it. Maybe try things that you didn't know existed, or that you didn't think were for you, because getting all these other bits of support, whether it's physio or therapy, or trying lots of different things, is really, really beneficial, and asking for help is totally okay. That would be my main takeaway from everything. And also, if you're going through, if you've had a traumatic experience, then it's okay to feel rubbish, and give yourself lots of time to get used to the adaptations and get used to the different emotions. That's totally fine. But at the end of it, or in the middle of it, or whenever is okay, try and see just the tiny little positive things if you can do. And I know that's not always possible for everybody, but it helped me a lot, noticing certain things, being grateful for certain things, and trying to move through the emotion.
Well, you certainly are remarkably positive, and this has been absolutely very, very insightful into your experience and how you've dealt with and managed to come out so happy on the other side. It's absolutely fantastic to hear.
Thanks.
Annie, thank you so much. I appreciate everything you've told us, and I will see you in clinic.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to LBSM's Extraordinary Patient Stories. We really hope you enjoyed listening. If any of the topics discussed are relevant to you, or you want to find out more, please get in touch by phone, email, social media, or visit our website. Thanks again, and see you soon.